He is set to become the first G7 leader to shake hands with Xi Jinping since the start of the COVID pandemic. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will make an inaugural trip to China this Friday, accompanied by a delegation of business leaders. China has been Germany's single biggest trade partner for years, as China's demand for German cars and machinery has fueled its growth over the past 2 decades. EU leaders will be closely watching for clues on how serious Berlin is about reducing its economic reliance on China and on confronting its communist leadership over human rights. It comes after Germany's BASF announced it would cut the size of its European sites permanently and instead expand in China. The world's largest multinational chemical company cited a triple burden of sluggish growth, high energy costs, and over-regulation in Europe. According to Poland and Belgium-based professor and senior analyst David Engels, the German Chancellor's move shows the tensions over energy prices in Europe and the tensions with other countries over regulating these prices.
The German government is currently heavily subsidizing its own energy sector, especially the price of gas in Germany. They want to help the German consumer as much as possible, not to have to pay too much. That's the price of the war in Ukraine. Now we know that this was going to create quite serious tensions with France. We can see here a kind of doublespeak, which is obviously also expressed in connection with the links with China.
EU Commissioner Thierry Breton said this week that European governments and companies must realize China is a rival to the EU and they should not be naive whenever they approve Chinese investment. Breton warns of China gaining influence over critical infrastructure. 1 week ago, the German government approved the sale of a stake in Germany's largest port to a Chinese state-run shipping company. Engels says the pandemic has exposed Europe's dependency to China.
The European Union realized this at the time of the COVID crisis. Of all its dependencies at the medical level, at the level of the various supply chains across the continent and overseas, in short, the crisis of the last few years has really shown things that many commentators have been pointing out for years, even decades. That is to say, we are making ourselves systematically dependent on China with our eyes open, and that the rationale of the Europeans, including of the EU, has made through certain economic treaties, admittedly enormous, this dependence possible.
According to the European Economic Chamber, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and the UK together account for almost 90% of European direct investments in China since 2018, while more than half of that came from Germany. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.